Something like this, like dialogue.
Yeah, but that Yeah, because anyone joins.
I figured it out, and I'm just gonna
Vai ser mais uma
Bueno, María igual. Mientras se llama. ¿Dónde?
El ayuno. C'est qu'est-ce qu'on fait avec les gens qui vont arriver sur le sac de dos? Il y a plein de conférences.
Si quieren. We're waiting for one of the artists to arrive.
Okay.
But you are going to introduce.
Yes, but also. La voy a llamar.
Everybody speaks English. Tout le monde parle anglais.
Hello everyone, thank you all for coming. I'm Sofia Saab and I'm part of the group Chroma Extravaganza. I'm in charge of marketing. We have John, he's the curator, and we have here Pradeep, that he was in charge of the production of everything you see here. In this roundtable, we will mainly talk about how the different cultural backgrounds of each of us that are international, affecting the perception of colors and also the artistic taste that we all have. So we have here Latin American artists like Isabel, designer of the bags, Elias Crespin, that he's an invited guest, Sergio, that he's the photographer, and Mariam Maslavi, that she's not Latin American, but we didn't want to limit ourselves. And we wanted to have someone that's interested in Latin America and also that is very colorful and very, how can I say, original in her aesthetics, as extravagant in her, eccentric in her
On my project.
projects,
Architectural
yes,
project.
architectural
And in
art.
your life.
Interior designer. Yes.
First of my life.
So, thank you, and I'll get started with Carolina.
Thank you all for coming here today to this talk. And thanks to, well, first Cynthia that was being part of this project of the student that is actually very professional, and congratulations to you three for such a big project, John, Sophia, and Patek. And so I am going to talk a little bit about all the today and their approach of color. And well, when John, we talked the first time with John, he explained me that the color extravaganza was related to Barocco in some kind of very extravagant way we can have of colors. I asked him if it was about fluorescency or this kind of very strong colors, and he said that it was more like an idea of like a very strong way we live colors. If we try to define what is a color, what color is a skin, it's a second skin, something that cover in Latin actually is a skin. If we try to define red, we cannot, because we all have different ways of this color. We need a noun on the side of the color of red. Of course, we can define sky is kind of blue, but colors, we have history of colors, and culturally we change the game, the chromatism, and some colors appear in the history of colors, in the history actually, also because some accidents, for example, with green and arsenic, that make, for example, green as a color of devil at some point of the history. And also, for example, yellow was a very bad color at some point for Catholicism, and also how we associate, for example, blue to the Virgin at some point, and how blue become like a very important color for Catholicism. And we change and we think, and in our contemporary world, we think colors, they are absolute, but this feeling that we all have is a feeling, is a history, and memories also, they are related to memories. And I think I am going through this approach of each of us about memories. We have here different geographies also that define our chromatism. And also, I think we're in contemporary world. So I will just show one image that I think is very important. The colors, the classment of colors, to discovery of Newton. So Newton discovered the spectrum of, and we relate the colors to light from the 17th century. We relate the colors to the spectrum of light, but it was not always like that. And before the 17th century, the order of colors different than we know today, and so the red was close to the green, for example, and the green was not made by yellow and blue, but they found different ways to make colors. So I think today in the contemporary world we live, well, Mariam, she comes from Persia, which is a total different palette of colors we have in Western. So I think she will talk about this kind of also palette she has in her work. And so, and also it's important to know that not always in history, warm colors and cold colors were related to red and blue. Before the 17th century, it was totally the opposite we have today. warm colors were not red, and hot colors were blue, and cold colors were red. So this is something we think is absolute symbolism, but it's not. It's related to discoveries, it's related to also chemistry advances. So I think it's important to maybe place this little history. I will start presenting Sergio. I present all our guests. Sergio is a Peruvian photographer. He worked a lot with fashion magazines and models in Peru. You work also with cosmetology, and also you told me you study philosophy
And fine art.
and fine arts, exactly. And so we talk a little bit about the influence of the Bauhaus and the chromatism, the chromatic palette you have in the studies of fine arts. Actually, Sergio is here presenting all those photographies that are very just amazing and colored, and they have explosive idea of color. And they collaborate with Marim because what you told me during the pandemic, we all start being interested on our houses because we were inside of houses, and everybody started like embedding her interior and thinking about how living in a better or more beautiful spaces. And I think it was a tendency on Instagram or magazines of photography that Instagrammers start publishing images of interior, and you found those images were very like a like a not very original because they were kind of building some idea of mise en scène of interior, and you found it was interesting to ask to real persons that have been very interested on build their interior as Marian. You always had being interested on the interior. You are interior architect, stylist, designer, scenographer, and you have been always very influenced by color, but putting very different styles together, stylistic ideas. You put everything together and you mix colors we never imagine together. And so, Sergio, you propose to invite people that live very in this artistic way of the interior is like a piece of art. And so, so Sergio, please, can you tell us a little bit about your idea of color and how this fine art schools and the palette, the classes of chromatic chromatic games influence your work and how you live this idea of colors?
I was inspired by color since a very early age because I think it's a way to show your lifestyle, your mood, your desire, your passion, your character. And I was always attracted to the shape and the texture of colors. So that's why it pushed me to have studies in fine art and all sorts of shows of art like sculpture, lithography, painting, graphic design. So finally, I discovered that I really love drawing and painting. Drawing was more of a black and white studies of the shapes and the bodies and the how do you say still life object, while the painting was an explosion of color that I wasn't afraid to explore and to play. And then with the years, with the digital revolution, I decided that it was interesting to search for original sources of color and personality rather than looking at fake universes put together just because you were trapped at home. And even before the pandemic, I started to do research on real life universes where you can find color, interesting shapes, and interesting decorations, and to come up with the photographies of this universe that have never been explored. So all these pictures have been photographed before pandemia, confinement, and this is just the beginning of what I continue to do during the lockdown and after, just to show that we can also have a colorful life and we don't need to be scared of the color. Then these universes are particularly, they blend with each other because the people that live in those places are definitely not afraid of their own lives. They're not afraid of the colors they love, and they don't live in
Which
places.
So, which place?
So I started traveling to places that were not necessarily here, although I started with that. That was one of my first exploration of personal universe, and I thought that classic Parisian interior, that I wanted to show how the richness can be also warm and you can live it at ease in a place like that. I traveled to this to shoot this pink pool, which I thought it was unique. And then when I went to Colombia, Cartagena, to shoot this entire hotel covered in nature. So basically, I wanted to photograph unique and individual spaces to show people that you don't have to be afraid of exuberance, of nature, of color, and you don't have to live your life in black and white just because it's part of being discreet.
And you talk about learning these classical games of colors.
Yeah.
Was also very important in your studies, and and also how you talk about also the history of colors in Peru, maybe in Chile, in South America, or the approach of colors that are very different than in Western. And another point you were talking about is pink. Pink is a kind of always problematic color. It's always like associations, and we try to put things on ideas of cliches. So,
Yeah, for example, when I was talking about the pool, to me that is the perfect use of pink. The owner of the pool and the garden, she wasn't afraid of mixed pink with nature, and I added that pink wardrobe in order to make it possible, elegant, and livable. You have to live with a pink pool every day of your life, and I thought it was a sublime idea because number one, it's not typical. When you go to a home, you see a light blue pool or a classical color, and it becomes ordinary. Whether the pool was completely pink, and I thought photogenically and for the life, for an everyday life, it could be beautiful if it's well performed and well. You were talking about the school, of course. The teachers show you the palette, the color scales from black to white, and I was taught that the black and the white were not colors, and since day one they made colors. I had to come up with a perfect dark shade, the darkest shade, with the mix of all the colors, and the white I was forbidden to use the white until the last years of painting because I needed to create perfect light with the colorful palette. So basically, black and white were shades and the grays that you use when you were in fifth or sixth year. You couldn't use it at all. You have to make sure you can be able to create your own palette with the color. So I think that without thinking, it's stimulating your creativity and stimulating your eye to see the world with different eyes.
And so I want to go to Mariam because I think what you are saying, Sergio, bring us to your idea of color as a style of life. Totally, Mariam. I have the chance to went to Mariam's house because Sergio, when I was preparing this round table, Sergio said you cannot talk with Mariam without being on her house because her house is just amazing. It's a space of colors, of mixes, or of different arts from everywhere, and objects and paintings. And I think it was really such a big experience to be with you. You were telling me that color for you is related to feelings, to emotions, and the way you invent or every universe you create comes from really from emotions. And you also tell me that the person they have a color, and you can feel that very strongly. Can you tell us a little bit about this?
Of course, thank you. Thank you for making me back. Thank you for inviting me, first of all. Thank you for everybody to listening. So I'm architect, designer, architect. And so I always think I'm a Persian, so I did them before in Tehran, and then I was in boarding school very, very early. I was 6 years old. Everything is come because I was very, very early, very young, the boarding school. It's like a jail. So I mean, you have to dream, your own life and to make everything very colorful. I think very, very important, People, some people they're afraid probably of the colors because it's something coming from very, 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 very long time ago, even since maybe antiquity, because maybe if you have some accident and you have blood, you're gonna be always afraid about all the things about red or something. So we know that everything is coming, nobody's afraid about colors because it's something, deeply, deeply, deeply. So alors ça peut être mythologique or it can be, bad story, the things like this. So when I was very, very young and very kid, so I had, to make myself, my own colorful life, So I think everything's coming there. So what I didn't have, the parents and to say, that it's not good, not the yellow, blah, blah, blah. So I didn't have rules. I mean, my rules even now at my age, my rules is not have rules exactly. So everything is coming like this. So I think everybody and effectively, and I was always, to put everybody on the color. So everybody I didn't like, so it was all the colors I didn't like, but I liked. So I mean, it's white and black, and for me, the white and black, it's the black, it's the devil, and the white, it's the infirmière, so it's the hospital. So I mean, it was always, it was always like this, and the other person, it was all the, all every colors and every, and after that, all the, everything you do, it's all the person they're afraid about colors, as we said, with Sergio, they're afraid about life and they're afraid about the other person, So that is, and everything is coming from. So you have two kind of relationship with that, or you're afraid of everything when you're in boarding school, or you're making, your own life about the colorful and you live with the colors. So you can imagine, even if it's everything is white here, and you can imagine, now there's a pink window and then I'm coming here, it was green cat and there's a lot of, a lot of yellow, a lot of gold, a lot of everything. So and I think it's kind of, you have to play with the color, and the first thing is to have the imagination of the color. You can be around all the white, but you can imagine the color, First of all, that's what, I think the color is, first of all, is emotion. And for me, and as we said last day, when you're coming in the showroom, I think for me, there is any color that doesn't go with any color. It doesn't exist, you know. It's like you say, okay, if you are tall or if you are very, you know, very big, you cannot put married. I mean, it doesn't, there is no rules, you know, the color, there are no rules, you know. I mean, you have to be.
Anarchy.
Huh?
Anarchy.
Oui, c'est ça, voilà, exactly. So everybody has a color, but you can freedom, of course. I mean, but there is no color which is not, there is not any kind of racism about the color, you know. When you say, okay, you know, and the blues, you cannot put it, with the yellow, and the yellow you cannot. So I'm Persian, so I was grow up with all the Persian carpet, of course, and we have very, very colorful and for me, you know, the color is obvious. It's the origin. You know what is it, origin? So you can do everything, and if you don't, you know, if you have fun, and it can be very fun, and the atmosphere, and you have to be, for the color, it's sexy. It's sexy. It has to be, you know, something that you have. When you say, okay, the wall, okay, all the letter, we're gonna put yellow. No, it's not like this. Color is much more than that. You have to put everything like this, and you can put it on your skin, you know. So it's like emotion. You have to, it's very, very free. It's a feeling, something like that. And also, I told you, the color for me, it's masculine and feminine too. So you can be with blue, as you said. So we're gonna say, okay, blue, normally we have in the generation, we say, okay, when you have children, we're gonna make, you know, the room in blue for you. Because it's a boy, and we're gonna put the pink because, you know, no, why? I mean, they can do exactly the, you know, the contrary. There is no, I mean, we don't need to be, you are, you can, I love pink food, I love pink for women and with the man. I mean, you know, there is no racism about all these things. It's just, you know, an emotion and to make you happy. So for me, you know, it's color, it's just life. It's just life, and it's a discourse, it's a conversation, you know.
But you talked last time about like the same color that depending on the object will be masculine or feminine. Can you explain a little bit this idea because it's more like an aura, I think, for you, the color that inhabitate things and humans. And I think also you don't separate your interior from you. You are like the same entity, and
Like
when
me,
you're
you know, if you look at me, I'm a sofa today, you know. I'm like I'm a sofa, you know, I'm a blue sofa on a chair, you know. So of course, you know, because I'm a color, and when I'm living, you know, in my showroom, in my place, when I'm doing, you know, all my projects, everything. Because if there's a chair which is very round, it's very curved, I'm gonna call him, you know, Don Carlos. And Don Carlos, instead of, you know, putting Don Carlos in the marine, I'm gonna put him in pink, you know. You know what I mean? So it's like Almodovar, so they have all the furniture and all everything. It's like a movie star, you know. And all the colors are becoming like actors, because you know if you see, I say again, it's all about emotion and imagination. It's a mental thing, you know. It's not you don't have to put color. It's that you have only to put it on the wall and that. This is the carpet. No, everything is mix and match. It's about the mental and about the imagination. And then when you grow up like this, so there is no rules, anything, and there is no limit.
and the same as Isabella, you have a I would say a complicated relation with white. We talked the other day, well, in different ways, you too, but we were saying last time we meet that the wedding dress before the Middle Age was not white, it was red, because red was the color of luxury at the time. And when the Catholicism arrives and imposed the white dress because it was related to the Virgin, and so that's an idea we think. And actually, the white dress, the wedding white dress, traveled to in like to the whole world. Actually, Indians they adapt the white dress and the whole cultures, like even Indians in Latin America now they marry with a white dress. And you explain me this complicated relation you have with white. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
I mean, so because what are the complications for me? You know, it's to put name on the color. I mean, first of all, because why we say white? I mean, you know, the white can be the pink. I mean, it's a word, only word, so this is, so when you say white, your imagination going to white. So, I mean, if you can, maybe if I change the word and I tell you this is pink, you can imagine that, like pink. So, I don't have a problem with white. I mean, I just have a problem with the word, because it's always, you put everything, on the placard, on the stage. So, white, blue, da, da, da. Moi, I don't have word. I just, dancing, and come on, I'm doing like a striptease, like a seduction with the colors. I say everything colors. I don't put really word on it. So for me, there is no. So everything can be together. So of course, after that, of course, the education will have to put word on it. But I mean, so the white for me, it's depend. I don't like the word white. So I like to working with crème chantilly. Like come on with crème chantilly, cream.
Whipped cream.
But because I need to have first of all the emotion, like crème chantilly.
It's to mix.
It's something so much emotion. If you say white, for me it's hospital. Well, so it's the problem of the word. I'm not.
Well, I will in second part. I think Isabella and Elias, they have more relation with light, I think, and color as a light. Maybe Elias is more like the color as a music, I think, or movement. Well, I will introduce Isabella. She's a Venezuelan designer, accessories that you have in front of the window. She worked in Louis Vuitton and she completed a master in Institut Français de la Mode. And she also was interned in Carlos Clusius, so that's an interesting relation with Elias. And her production is more based on stone colors. We talk a lot about the games of stones also. More in her work is more in earth colors. And you were telling me about the relation you have in Venezuela with the earth colors and the architecture and all those pigments that for you were very good memories of your childhood. And you always work with natural colors. And there's this amazing bag you have in front that is made by stones and is not useful actually as a bag because it cannot contain anything but only stones and colors. And also you were telling me how the colors of the stone they use their tone because when they are in nature they have oxidation, they have all the factors of the nature, the air, the water. And so can you explain us a little bit about this relation you have with the games, the tones?
Yeah, of course. So I think in my work, I see color more than anything as a tool because, I mean, humans are very visual. It's a very visual species. We use color as a way of getting attention and as a way of providing a visual interest. So in my work, it depends a lot on the priority that I assign. Because as a designer and as an artist, I feel like through our work, we're always trying to say something. And it depends on what you want to say, what color you assign to the object that you want to produce. In this collection specifically, Piedras was all about texture and form and really appreciating the forms that we see in the history that we live as humans on the natural earth. So for me, it was important that the color wasn't the first thing that you noticed. It's the first thing that you notice is supposed to be the form and it's supposed to be the object as a whole. And so in this specific bag that you were talking about, the anti-bag,
There are piedras that I collected from Canaima in Venezuela in the Amazon. And so it's a place that, I mean, there's certain places on earth where you go and you really feel the energy of the place. And this is one of those places that you really kind of get transcended into not even the history of the place, just the history of the earth as a whole, which we have absolutely no comprehension about, honestly. And you see these stones, and the place where I picked it up, I told you, looked almost kind of like a natural rainbow of earth colors. But they were all very different in their hue, very slightly, but they're so subtle sometimes, and they were very subtle changes in tone. And so for me, it was important to grab the material and really respect it as a material in itself, because raw materials deserve to be respected as materials. And so this bag was really kind of a celebration as what it is naturally, picked up from the ground and then encased in this kind of leather harness, which was all handcrafted. And the detail that was put in was very respectful of the material itself. And then the rest of my work, for example, the orange bag that's in the window is a lot more bright and a lot more colorful, and there's a big difference between the two collections. And it's because in that specific one, it was about my relationship with my home country, Venezuela. So I have nothing but good memories of my country, and so I wanted to. And in my experience, the first thing that I thought about with Venezuela was my house and the terracotta floors that were in my house. And that to me brings a very warm memory of my country and a very warm memory of my childhood. And maybe, obviously, it's not the first thing you think of when you see the bag, because that's a personal memory of mine. But then I think it's interesting how color, because we are so visual, people attach meaning to colors in very different ways. So maybe for I see it and I see, oh, my house in Venezuela and the floors. Nobody else is gonna see that. They're gonna see, oh, the orange of, I don't know, my last vacation in Italy, or no. So I think it's a very beautiful thing that we can attach these meaning to things that are not necessarily designed with us in mind, but we always find something that can relate to us. And color is a great way to show that.
Well, there's two very interesting things in your work. First, that the colors, many times they come from stones or from nature, especially, for example, green from malachite, for example. And I think also how the color they change sometimes. For example, if you see some paintings that were made with copper green, they turn into like the landscapes that were green, they turn into browns because the base was the copper. And so I think this is a very interesting aspect in your work, because as they are natural colors, they change, and I don't know if they need to be back to the nature, or what are their use, if they are pieces of art or pieces of memory. There's also another bag that is very interesting. It's in metal. It's metallic bag that has like prints on top of your friends, I think, and it's also an object that charges memories. And the metallic color is very also interesting for light to be changed depending on the light, the reflects, you say, and reflects, and I think this idea of changing of the object and also how it evolves in time. And I wanted also you to talk us about the white bag. That you told me you have also a strange relation with white for use like a sketch, just to put the form, to design the form, maybe in a way that we will discuss with Elias, and kind of lines or maybe like a geography, white, I don't know. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Okay, so specifically about white, I mean, scientifically, white is the absence of color. So it's when you see white, it's really the wavelength of all colors coming into you at once, and so your brain registers it as white. But there's a lot of symbolism that we can attribute to white. I think that for me, the first thing that comes to mind is kind of peace and tranquility and kind of like blank slate, like it's clean. And so I think that there's very specific uses for white. I am not really an advocate of like because it's missing something. White is always missing something. But in some cases, it's almost like a breath. Like you see all of this information and your brain is charged with all of this information. You need a little like respiro. And so in this collection that was really kind of, for me, very emotionally charged with, because it's all about memories and kind of create and put into materials. This bag specifically, I wanted it to be specifically about form. Like the main thing that you see when you see this bag is the form and the three-dimensional aspect of this bag. And so for me, it was necessary to make it in white because I don't want the first thing to see when you see this bag is, wow, what a beautiful red bag. I want you to think about the form and I want you to think about the object as a three-dimensional thing. And so I think it's necessary to make these types of objects where you think really more about the texture, more about the three-dimensionality of it. And then with the metal bag, for example, because you talked a little bit about it, there's also this aspect of reflections and kind of the light that is cast on it. So you kind of get a little bit of all colors, almost. And I think it is also a very important thing to discuss in terms of design because it really, I feel like, brings value to an object. So when you want to show something as valuable, see jewelry as something that's valuable, we see everything that's kind of bright and shiny, we as humans are super interested in it, and we see it as something that's like special. And so in terms of symbolism, you know, if you look at it in an object, I wanted this one specifically to be like kind of the highlighted part of the collection. And so it was important to cast it in a material that was valuable, that you could see it and you feel like it has weight to it and it has importance.
Thank you. And it's actually your only white object.
Yeah.
I think the others are on the earth tones. Okay. Well, I have here Elias Crespin, and the honor of being in this round table because you are really an artist I really I appreciate a lot. And now he is presenting a piece as part of the collection. I invite you guys to go and discover this amazing piece. Elias, he has an heritage, he's Venezuelan also. He studied informatics, kind of mathematical work, and also your grandparents were artists and you were very influenced by artists of optical art and artists as Rafael Soto, Cruz Diaz, and also Diego. I think when the guys gave me your name that you were going to be in this round table, I say, where's the color in your work? I don't see the color. For me, it was very like metallic and white and gray, and I didn't knew where was this part of color. So when we talked in the phone to prepare this discussion, you start talking that also was a question for you, is the part of the color in your work. So I think you prepared a little document to show us where is the color in your work. I would say your work is the color in your work is like more like related to music. And I have some notes here about how the blue note was invented. There's all those expressions in current language, like the blue note, the blue Monday, or l'heure bleue, the blue hour. Voilà. And so the blue note was a collaboration between Delacroix and Chopin, that they were trying to find this moment of the day where the sun goes, the sun disappears. And so in this discussion, they were trying to represent the same thing on different techniques. And so, yeah, the painter was finding the lights to represent this moment of the day that is kind of sad, something difficult because the light is over. Yeah, the musician was trying to represent the same thing in music, so this is why the blue note expression exists, which is kind of very nice, poetic thing. And so I think your work is in this kind of, actually, if we talk in music and in chromatic vocabulary, we will find a lot of similar vocabulary, like scale, gain, nuance. Nuance is range, or nuance is
Tonalidad.
shape. Yeah, shape. Tone. Yeah. So if we talk, if we go to kind of vocabulary, we see that they have very similar words, and it's interesting. And I think your work has that kind of music, silence, a lot of silence, and also colors, but related to light, to reflection also. And so, if you can go through this little presentation of your work, to explain us where is the color. Actually, they're mobiles and very volatile installations. So,
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me to this speech, and it's very, very enriching to share with all of you these thoughts. I'm not an expert in color, so I feel like the newbie here. Let's see. And I don't have a lot of color theory, understanding, or philosophy background. So I think the best way to talk about color as the artist I am is to give some examples of what I've done with color. And we can discuss from there. So at the beginning, I'll try to be fast. So I always hesitate. Should I tell this story or not? Well, but I think I should give a little introduction on how I started as an artist. And it was, well, we start all as babies, right? Because of things of life, I decided to study computer science, although I wanted to be an architect or a designer. I was very keen to visuals and graphics and craft, arts and crafts. And I did a lot with my grandparents in their studio. I was there playing as a kid. So I had a certain connection with creation. But I got in love with programming and I decided to study computer science. I did a lot of math at school. I finished my school. I worked in the market for boring companies with accounting systems or payroll systems, which, well, humans are intelligent and can manage to do these things, but I didn't love that. And one day I fortunately stood or bumped into a very nice, incredible work by Jesus Soto. It was in the Museum of Fine Arts of Caracas. And it was this cube with color, which I got in love with. And I made the connection of math and equations that we can draw on a 3D space with this object. And I said, oh, if this could move, it would be really maybe a step forward into such a beautiful object. And then some years later, I started a research and development process to see how I could connect mathematical models on a computer program with a physical object and make it move through little motors. And that was through an equivalent of the pandemic that we all lived recently. That in Venezuela, in Caracas, we had an oil company. The oil company is the biggest company in Venezuela, and it's the main company, and everything is based on the oil economics. And there was an oil employees strike for several months. So at some point, we had to stay at home. We couldn't go out. There was no gas. There was no gasoline. It was the whole country stopped, like in the confinement in the pandemic. So I took that opportunity to stay at home. Maybe I'm talking too much about myself. And I suddenly have that feeling. I'm okay. And there I'll follow. I'll keep going. So I had the chance to do all these experiments on computers and motors and see how is this that you can make a program that does what you want and have that move a physical object as you want. So that was the connection between the virtual and the real reality or the physical reality. And that was fascinating. And then, well, how can I have many vectors or points of movement connected to just one program and do something interesting with it? So that was the next step, and so on. Fortunately, the oil strike was still there, so I had time to continue and pursue my experiment. And after 2 years, I finished my first work, which is depicted in this picture. It's a Maya, which has no color. It's just a mesh that is suspended from 64 transparent nylon strings that hold these little balls. Each of these little beads is connected to a nylon string, and the whole set of points are holding a metal mesh, a metal flexible mesh. So as the points are moved, each moved by one little motor, the whole mesh does some flexing. And that's the same principle on all my works. So what I was always interested since then was in how to make what I felt as a movement, an interesting movement. How can I make it happen on itself outside of myself? So that's a way which I could make that happen. And then color is not there. Color is not needed, actually. It's a tool, like Isabella said. It's a technique or a property of matter that I can exploit in my work, as we will see on the next ones. And particularly in the arrows here. Okay, so this is like my third work after the first one. Well, third work is always after the third one. It's a cube. It's an homage to Jesus Soto in return for the inspiration that he had given me. And I said, okay, I'm going to make a cube that dances the same way I imagined that dance of a cube on the Soto piece. But then when I put all the tubes, or I imagine all the tubes together, I said, it's going to be a mass of metal where you're going to get a little bit confused about what's happening with the movement and the ondulation of the elements. So I used color to put an emphasis on the tip of each of the tubes. So it would create a colored surface that would be more clearly seen. So color here is used as a contrast element to make more visible or clearly visible the movement that I was interested in showing. So that was the first time. Yes.
Do you use your game or your chromatism? They come from synetics and their use of primary colors that mix and produce the secondary colors, or from where come your chromatism?
Well, in this first case, it came from Soto itself. So I wanted to use color I have seen in some of his works. So I used that same color because it was an homage to Soto, and it was easy. I didn't have to think that much about a color. It was chosen that way. It's interesting. I don't consciously, at least, use any symbolism in color or meaning about the color or connection with history or whatever about the color. Pink is pink, white is white. Like you said that you don't like the word. What I understand is you're interested in the color itself, right? And what happens directly into our eyes and brain, and not without mattering. No, that's French, that's structure. Well, but we don't care about what the word is, right? So in that way, I try, or I don't even try. I don't connect color with a meaning directly. Of course, unconsciously, maybe we're doing it. Why do we like red? Why do we like blue?
Yeah, like just I have this image I prepared. This is the chromatic circle from Bauhaus that all the modern artists start working with from that point. And some colors from this model are secondary, and some others are primary. But this is just a code. And so this is why, for example, green and orange and violet, they become secondary, but this is just a code, as you were saying. This is nothing about reality, or this is just and how this palette influenced a lot of artists, modern artists as Kandinsky, Klee, and I am pretty sure the synetics, they were very influenced by all those colors, because this code says that you can mix yellow and red to make orange, and this is what synetics they were doing, actually putting primary colors and create movement to mix them and to make this incredible sensation of nuance.
Thank you. Well, I think I have more or less covered what I wanted to say. I can pass fast about the example, so we don't stop by all the different anecdotes behind each work. I have to go the other way around. So this interesting. This is another piece. It's I first defined the geometrical identity or the form of my piece. That's what I conceived first. In this case, it's a circle, and the elements are radially organized around the circle. And what interested me here in this, it was a finding, is when I put them like this, there are different depths of color that appear according to the number of plates of blue, in this case, that are together on the way from the light source to your eyes. So when more dramatically, because it changes the number of plates on the way. So that was a very interesting finding, and I like that. This one is same geometrical identity, completely different color scheme, and it's a more complicated piece, let's say, visually. shadows are very important as well. Very interesting what you can do with movement and shadow. I'm showing only the subset of color works I've done. More than the same amount of works I've done on metal, on bare metal and lead, aluminum, stainless steel, copper. So those I'm not showing right now. So this is another one. This here I combine metal and plexiglass translucent orange in this case. I don't know why people don't like orange. And I didn't know people were afraid of color. It's the first time I hear that people is afraid of color. Or maybe I don't understand the term of afraid or of using it.
The question is why, as you said, why people are afraid of orange? Why orange? Why orange? Because it has to be something done, in their life or something. Orange, it's like it's a color. It's not orange, as I said, because orange it doesn't mean nothing, because before that, yes, it's a reference. It's just like a code, It's like, your name, I don't, but your name, it can be Brigitte. Brigitte, okay, it's girl, but why not? You know what I mean? Because,
My name is Maria.
c'est ça, and we can play like this. You know what I mean? So, but if, maybe it's not Brigitte because you don't have the color of Brigitte. You know what I mean? It's something much more deeper than that. So I don't know why people they don't like maybe pink. Why pink? It's not for the boy. There's so many things. It's so ridiculous, and I think it's something much more deeply than than only just to be face on face with the color and to see exactly and talk only about the emotion. The feeling that you have with just with this color. Not name it, you know what I mean? Maybe if we don't name it, maybe your fear is going to be a little bit less. Sorry, I disturbed you.
So we go on. Here we have a fluorescent in a dark room, other shapes, other colors, and what happens. Green. This is all transparent rings, but the center one that is red. And only by having that little red, it's called red dot, the piece, by the way. Only by having that little red, the attention goes into it and something happens. I don't know exactly why.
Only the fluorescent piece. Before you have two versions of this, one with light and the other without light, because we're very interested also on light and color.
Yeah. This one is on a dark room with UV light, and there's a picture of the same one that I didn't include here, of the same piece where you have white light, and you see the difference in what happens. Also, this is taken with an open shutter, so the trace of the movement stays visible in the picture. This is translucent red. So I say I'm not so interested in color, but I did a lot of color experiments with the same geometry, right? Same geometry, different color combinations creates a difference. And some people connect more with one and others with another one. It varies. It's I don't know why. It's just interesting. Here we go. Other shapes, of course, I'm not presenting the movement. All these it's not a marketing speech, but in my website, you can go to each of these works and there's a video of each of the works that you can see there. But it would have taken too much time to make an overview of the color, which is the color spectrum that I have worked with. This is an example of a piece without color, and I did the same one in red, and there's a difference. And there are favorites. This is the piece in the Louvre Museum. Thank you.
You were explaining about sequela polar.
It's a combination.
Maybe
There are 128 tubes. Half of them are black and the other half are night blue, so a dark blue. I didn't want to have it all the same color because it was too clean, too flat. Thank you. So I finally, after a color decision process, that would have been interesting to bring maybe. I did a prototype with a small scale version of the piece with 5 colors, two shades of red, natural aluminum color, black and blue. And I did this prototype operational with a dance, and I brought it to the space to see how it would interact with the environment. That was a luxury to be able to do this. So all the directors of the departments of the museum came and they could see what I was after. And that was a good way to move the project forward. And there I decided it should be black or blue for reasons that made it preferable. Technically, you would see better the piece as a whole in these darker colors in this environment. So blue or black. And then I said, well, both. I'll make them both. And the colors are, the blue and the black elements are randomly distributed. They're not in a fixed pace, blue, black, blue, black, blue, black, or two blue, two black. They're randomly. I gave them to my collaborators, and I said, okay, you put them in whatever order without having more than 3 of the same color together. So that's a way to use color.
What about the idea of color as music or as movement? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, the music is a time-related art. And my works are also time-related. They move, they modulate along time, the same way music does. It's only that it's a music that you listen with your eyes instead of with your ears. Well, this was in the too late.
glass of wine.
For all.
Red wine, please.
Okay.
Dark red.
So this was a red piece talking about dark red installed at the Grand Palais for the exhibition. I don't know if you visited the exhibition Artists and Robots in 2018. And this was the piece that the director of the Louvre saw. And when he saw it, he said, okay, I want this for my decoration of the museum. So that was a triggering piece. Very lucky. So it was a whole challenge. Will this red work in this environment? Yeah, it worked perfectly. So color helps. Another one.
But they're almost primary.
They're always primary,
Well,
except for the orange. Yeah. Maybe I'm biased in a way, and I'm not even aware. Also, each work is so complicated to make that maybe I choose a simple path for the form and for the color. Yeah, I don't know. It's just also that I don't need a more complex approach to color. I did, nevertheless, have a more complex approach to color through a collaboration with another artist called Felipe Pantone. He wanted a piece of mine, I wanted a piece of his. And at some point we said, let's do a piece together. So we worked on, it's very interesting. I've collaborated only 2 times, once with a musician, a sound artist, and we integrated sound with my moving pieces, and with Felipe Pantone, where we integrated color with the movement. And I believe that the collaboration worked so well because we're working with independent dimensions on the work. He's working with the color, I'm working with the movement. So we're not competing. We're blending, integrating all our paths and our history that as artists we each have into one piece, and the integration happens pretty well. So this is, we made 8 of these. It's an edition of 8. We call, through his naming convention, let's say, it's called Chroma Flexionante, through my convention. And we did also another one, which is a cube. And the interesting thing here is how the color makes a connection that doesn't exist between the elements, that you visually join. You make the connection visually. So this blue that is also here, that makes like the colors stretch with the movement. And that is something that happened with this collaboration that I really love. And this other one also has the same principle of the first cube, where the stripes, the relatively thin stripes of color, connect the different elements and allow you to perceive the shape that is happening at different moments. And this is a sketch of the one I'm working for right now. It's a cube with colors on the top, colors on the bottom. It's another Soto undulating cube, and with a stripe of red in the middle. And it should be shown in L'Île sur la Sorgue in April. Let's see what happens. I haven't solved the color thing yet. So this is it. I don't know if you have questions, you want to go into details, mine or somebody else's.
Do you want to say something?
I wanted to thank everybody.
And maybe if you have questions, we can open to the public some questions if you want to.
Français aussi. Il y a beaucoup de français ce soir.
Whatever you want. Any language you want to use language. But we see very different approaches of color, and actually here we have a Latin American artist and another Latin American artist that come from not far away, and they have totally different approaches of color. And sometimes we are victims, we Latin Americans, victims of cliches, a lot of cliches. And I think, as for example, maybe you always associate it to Orientalism or things like that. But I think you avoid it totally because you are very free, or well, of course you like tapestry, Oriental tapestry, but it's very personal approaches, and also to think color as a dance, or to think colors as a person.
For me, your work is like a ballet, It's like a ballet.
Mechanical ballet.
Mechanical ballet. So exactly. So I mean, we even feel, the music on it. And so we feel, the movement, we feel everything. So again, I'm going to say again the same thing. Everything is about emotion, So I mean, even when it's the color is coming because it's much more seduction. Je pense que it's only that, because we need a little bit color, because when you put color, the nude, why we put all dress on because it's not, if we're happy with the nude one, and we go naked, no? I mean, and I know sometimes when I want to passion, when I want to make me myself, much more visible, I choose exactly, my emotion about the color which I do. So, I mean, even when you put the color on your, because you said, you said, you didn't put color, but, and you said primitive color, I think, every color, it's coming, it's coming, it's coming with the, ça veut dire que c'est vrai, and it's with love. It's coming with the shape on your, I mean, the shape, because it has to come with it. Just, I mean, there's no asking about that. You know what I mean? That's why, we're asking a lot about color, but I mean, the color is just emotion. It's coming like this, like, like the love at the first sight. I mean, it just has to be this color. I mean, voilà. Let's
The
let
love
it go.
at first
Voilà,
sight is
oui.
an explosion of color.
Of course, everything. So we have to explore without so many questions about that. I mean, not to have this phobia of everything and just make it, make love with color and just go for it and not be afraid about not too much question. Just ask your own emotion. I think so. I think it's answering for everything.
Questions, please? Somebody wants to ask something?
Yes, hearing you all speaking about colors, I remind myself of a movie. I believe it was the Coco Chanel movie. And in that movie, I've learned, I don't remember if it was 2 or 3, but I believe that Coco Chanel was thinking, she was believing, and she made a rule of the fact that in stylism, you cannot put more than 3 colors on yourself. So I would like to know what you think personally of this as artists that use color, and do you apply colors that you use on your art to yourself? Thank you.
Madame, ne sera pas d'accord avec vous. Non, j'adore Gabrielle Chanel, j'adore Coco Chanel, évidemment. Et je pense que pour quelle raison elle a dit qu'en fait, il ne fallait pas mettre plus de 3 couleurs. C'est-à-dire que moi, je ne sais pas, il pourrait avoir juste 2 yeux et une bouche. Alors, je ne sais pas, parce que sinon, qu'est-ce qu'on va faire? Voilà, il faudrait, non, mais je ne sais pas, il faut être un robot. Donc, mais c'est vrai qu'en quelque sorte, c'est vrai, pardon, je parle en français, et ceux qui ne comprennent pas, on va le redire en anglais. Mais pas en malheureusement, je suis pas aussi peu comme vous, je ne connais pas autant de langues. Mais je pense qu'en fait, c'est vrai que dans l'architecture aussi, c'est vrai que dans nos projets, souvent, quand on est très très bien élevé, pas comme moi, parce que moi je suis très très mal élevé, il s'agit de mettre 3 couleurs. Il ne faut pas mélanger plus que ça. Mais on peut effectivement faire 3 couleurs là, 3 couleurs là, 3 couleurs là, et là, tout le bordel, et effectivement, ça fait plus de couleurs. Mais on peut imaginer de faire 3 couleurs à chaque fois en imaginant qu'elles sont dans des boîtes, des boîtes, des boîtes. Effectivement, c'est vrai, mais après, une fois qu'on regarde en fait, avec de perspective, toutes ces couleurs, comme fait en fait le monsieur, cet artiste extraordinaire, finalement, en fait, le jaune qui est en haut va, et moi je travaille beaucoup avec des flèches, c'est-à-dire que tout est très mathématique. Évidemment, ça, tout ce qui a l'air en fait le plus fou, c'est tout ce qu'il y a de plus précis et finalement très très mathématique. Et en fait, quand on a mis par exemple du jaune là, et on imagine qu'on a mis que 3 couleurs là, on peut mettre du jaune, orange et du vert par exemple, éventuellement. Et là, je vais mettre du jaune de nouveau là, et ça va en fait flécher avec de l'autre côté. Et en fait, il va y avoir finalement quelque part ces 3 couleurs partout, mais avec des nuances différentes. Voilà. Donc, parce qu'on ne peut pas parler de jaune, du jaune, il y en a tellement de nuances. Le vert, il y a tellement de nuances. Le rouge, donc on les traite comme ça. Mais les 3 couleurs dont vous parlez, ça peut devenir des milliers de couleurs dans ces 3 couleurs.
Also something that before I forget to mention, I think it's important in terms of.
No, it wasn't interesting at all.
I almost forgot what I was going to say. But the colors we choose also for the artworks, and I'm speaking for myself, and I'm extrapolating a little bit for other artists, I think. is limited to the coloring techniques that you have available. So that's also a limitation. You may want a certain color and it's not possible to have it, or for some reason. Like in the plexiglass plates that I use, usually the plexiglass comes in certain colors that are supplied and you're limited to that. It's not an excuse, but it can be the reason why some of the kinetic artists look like they're using the same colors for some kinetic reason, and it's just a practical reason for the availability of colors.
That's also a history of the color. For example, indigo arrives in a period where the colonies were there, and they bring this incredible color that becomes in fashion. And so the history of colors is determined by some economic events, and maybe this history of yellow, that of hate at some time, it was because church hate this yellow, and it was something like political ideas.
Yes, of course, there was always a reason for that.
And for example, the green malachite, of course, painters, they love it, but they couldn't afford it. Or for example, the yellow that used Van Gogh was the cheapest one, so the tournesol, they become brown also. So it's also some economic point, and you point a very interesting point. And the fashion also is a difference between fashion is one word, and how people wear outside of the street is another word. And so maybe
I don't think so, because the fashion, I mean, they do fashion or lifestyle and everything because of the street. So I mean, how does it come? I mean, the fashion, because we look, I mean, even for all my projects, because I see, always observing, everybody, how they live, how they're wearing, how they're da. And this is making a collection. I mean, for everything. I mean, art styling, I mean, project architecture, or everything. So it's always coming. I mean, you're not born and to say, I'm born, and you say, oh my God, I hate orange, the baby bonnet, a baby which is born. I mean, I don't like orange, mama. No, it doesn't exist. I mean, you know what I mean? Yes or no? So I mean, I mean, it's like primitive. I'm talking when I mean, have you seen already a baby which is, no, I had no. You know what I mean? So it's always coming. No, it's not conditioned exactly. Which is conditioned because of the political, and when you say, with the plexiglass and everything, you cannot do this color and this color. This is always for a reason. I mean, this is for a reason. The only reason you don't have no reason is hate color. I mean, Come on. It's only the only reason to don't hate other color because. Sorry.
Chromophobia is a common.
Chromophobia, it's chromophobia, it's a phobia of color. And there is a book which is David Batchelor, which because I did a big scenography with the galleries, I mean, it was Perimeter Art and Design from London, and it was in 47 with the Centre des Arts. And I was one of the artists, of course, and I did a parcours, and it was about the signature of this book of David Batchelor. La peur de la couleur, and it's chromophobia, it's a phobia of color, and it's much more deeper when you read of it. And he's a very big, I mean, he's editor and he's creator and he's a speaker in the Royal Dada School in London, blah blah blah. So it's much more than that, because there's people. The first thing, it's always about something, because there's always a reason. When you say about the, I choose this color and this color, it doesn't mean that you don't like this color. And because of the plexiglass, because you cannot do, I mean, there is a reason always. That's why. So it's always, about the education, maybe political, maybe because you saw, I mean, when she said, okay, for me, this orange is the, it's the, comment ça s'appelle, la terre. Oui, la terracotta. You know, for her it's terracotta. For her it's terracotta. For us it's orange. You know what I mean? So it's everything is about emotion. It's la palette de tous. It's sometimes, you know, when you were a very child and I pick you know, a red wine, you know, on your face, maybe you're gonna hate the red after that. So there's, you know, so normally we should not be afraid about color because color is love. I mean, it's, you know, it's life. I mean, it's conversation. It's, you know,
Another question in the public? Somebody was asking? En français? Quelqu'un veut poser une question? Et toi, Sergio, quand tu voyages, parce que toi, tu as eu beaucoup d'expérience de voyage, est-ce que tu cherches est-ce que ces couleurs de ton enfance ou cette gamme chromatique que tu as qui est très riche, est-ce qu'elle a évolué ou est-ce que tu la cherches ou est-ce que tu la superposes?
Je me souviens que j'avais 8 ans, j'avais déjà une chambre tout rouge. Donc, je pense que ça explique la raison pour laquelle j'adore la couleur. Après, mes vêtements, mon style de vie, c'était jamais blanc. C'était toujours très coloré, riche, beaucoup de textures. Et les blancs ou les noirs, ça ne m'intéressait pas du tout.
Et maintenant?
Hein?
Maintenant, ça t'intéresse? Tu es habillé en blanc?
oui. Mais il a fait exprès.
Non, mais non, en noir et blanc, mais je parle de toute ma vie, pas exactement maintenant, mais déjà avoir une chambre rouge à 8 ans, je pense que il y a un significat derrière que tu es attiré par la couleur. Et il n'y avait pas que moi, aussi j'ai dessiné la chambre de mes 2 frères. Un, c'était en bleu électrique. Et l'autre en vert jade.
Et tu vivais avec tes parents?
Je vivais avec mes parents, et on avait les droits à 8 ans de choisir nos couleurs assez extravagants pour des enfants de 8, 7 ans, 6 ans, avec des couleurs souvent laissées par des adultes.
Je crois que les enfants adorent la couleur. Je pense que les enfants, à part s'il y a eu des problèmes quelconques, je pense que les enfants, la première chose qu'on fait, d'après ce que moi je ne me rappelle plus, mais pas de moi, mais les enfants, on leur donne un tapis, n'est-ce pas? Un tapis sur lequel ils jouent, il y a des choses à enlever, à remettre, et c'est toujours avec les couleurs. On les apprend, on leur fait en fait la conversation avec la vie avant qu'ils parlent. Donc, la première conversation, je crois, c'est avec les couleurs, n'est-ce pas? Il me semble. Non, je peux parler encore.
Non, je voulais rajouter quelque chose. Donc, quand j'arrive à Paris, je pensais qu'ici, c'était en fait le centre de la couleur. À limiter, j'arrive dans un shooting, il y a un coiffeur qui me dit c'est beaucoup de couleurs quand même. Et je me suis dit, mais comment un Français, dans ma tête, quelqu'un qui est assez
Coloré.
non, illimité dans sa façon d'être, au voir les mondes, comment quelqu'un qui travaille quand même dans la mode peut me dire tu portes beaucoup de couleurs avec une paire, comme si j'étais une personne folle qui s'échappait d'un hôpital. Je me suis dit, mais c'est le monde à l'envers, non? Il avait des problèmes avec la couleur.
Je pense qu'il y a... Enfin, c'est pas faux ce que tu disais tout à l'heure de dire que ici, les gens avaient peur de la couleur. Les choses ont changé un peu. Mais il y a 20 ans, à Paris, les gens étaient habillés en noir et marron. Il y a eu un changement dans la mode et nous, latino-américains, souvent, on nous dit « Ah oui, mais toi, tu peux parce que tu es de là-bas. » Comme si on avait le droit à la couleur.
Non, je pense que c'est la liberté. Parce qu'en fait, c'est la liberté. Et qu'on associe, pardon. Alors, pour revenir à la question de monsieur, en fait, les 3 couleurs dont vous avez posé la question, regarde, Coco Chanel parlait des 3, c'est vrai qu'il ne faut pas trop de communication, en fait, c'est plutôt ça. Alors, moi, maintenant, je parle en tant qu'architecte intérieur. Vous êtes un artiste, c'est pas la même chose, mais c'est vrai que quand, en fait, on peut avoir un jaune là-bas, on peut travailler sur les 3 couleurs, mais en fait, dans un nuancier de peut-être 100 nuanciers. Mais on restera toujours dans la même gamme de couleurs. Mais on va les travailler autrement, mais la communication sera toujours, ce sera pas une autre couleur, ce sera juste en nuance plus bas. Après, ça va remonter comme un peu vos œuvres, ça va remonter, ça va redescendre, mais ça va rester dans les 3 couleurs. Ou bien il va y avoir peut-être du jaune très 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 pâle, quelque chose, même une petite pièce comme ça ici, qui va communiquer avec le jaune qui est beaucoup plus fort là-bas. Et ça, on ne se rendra pas compte, mais on a un cerveau visuel, si vous voulez, on a un cerveau visuel, et le discours et la marche, en fait, dans ce genre de parcours, on le garde, en fait, dans la tête. C'est-à-dire qu'en fait, le jaune que vous avez vu là-bas, vous allez le retrouver quelque part ailleurs, même dans un sandwich ou whatever, quelque chose, rien, un petit rien, mais ça va être peut-être un jaune très très pâle ou quelque chose, mais votre tête, elle va communiquer ensemble, donc ça va, c'est ce qui va faire que ça va vous calmer. Donc il ne faut pas trop de communication, les 3 couleurs dont vous parlez, c'est pas court, mais on peut avoir des centaines de couleurs, mais dans les mêmes nuanciers. C'est ce qui va faire que ça va être le calme, et on a vraiment, je dis encore une fois, le cerveau a beaucoup de visuels et se rappelle de tout, sans se rendre compte, mais il y a toujours des flashbacks, en fait. C'est comme un film, quand vous réalisez un film, il y a toujours un début et une fin, et au milieu, il ne faut pas que ce soit le bordel. Parce que sinon, on dit, ça part en couille, c'est pas possible. Non, il y a toujours quelque chose qui se passe pour arriver, en fait, à une autre histoire. Et ça, c'est mon truc à moi avec mes flèches, comme vous faites avec mais c'est vrai que moi, je mets toujours des flèches, comme en fait, tel discours, en fait, celui-ci parle avec celui-ci parle avec celui-ci, telle forme curve parle avec. Il faut qu'il y ait toujours une cohérence, donc les 3 couleurs, c'est pas faux, sauf qu'avec quoi. Pardon.
Peut-être donner la parole à Isabella. Tu comprends le français ou pas?
Oui, je comprends, mais je ne peux pas répondre en français.
Bon, sinon je parle.
I don't have a lot of vocabulary in English, but I understand.
Mais on peut t'aider.
Non, mais c'était aussi toi, ton travail avec les terracotta, ça vient aussi beaucoup du travail d'artisan, la façon comme les artisans utilisent la couleur dans ton pays, au Venezuela. Et toi, tu l'amènes à la mode d'une façon très élégante. Comment ce chemin il se passe pour toi? Comment tu fais voyager aussi ces couleurs de la nature sur des objets qui sont de luxe en fait?
Well, I think that in the space of fashion and in the context of fashion nowadays, I think that we're a lot more open to color, which is a good thing. But yes, historically, I mean, there was always kind of the stereotype that, Latino Americans, the Latinos dress with a lot of color, and then you would come to Paris and it's all black and it's all chic and elegant. And that's kind of the stereotype and the cliche that we kind of get accustomed to. But it's not true. There's a lot of power in color, and color can be a luxury item. It doesn't have to be, exclusive to artisanal items. Of course, there is a lot of color that we use in artisanal objects and crafted objects, because it's the color that we found in our surroundings and in our nature around us geographically. But it's not exclusive. I feel like in fashion, especially now, we're seeing a shift in what it means to be part of this kind of luxury space, which before was very closed, and now I feel like it's finally kind of opening up. And I feel like that's not to say that there is also not power in no color, because I feel like it's also kind of exclusionary to say that, there's not power in having an all black or an all white object or outfit or anything like that, because there's a lot of aspects to design, not just color. Color for me is definitely not the final thing you think about, because it's very much ingrained into what you're designing and the mood of what you want to create, and the season in which you want to create. There's a lot of aspects that we need to think about when creating for fashion. But I think that this kind of idea that, like you said, the 3 colors, you can't have more than 3 colors, it's totally not true. Completely not true, and especially in a luxury space. Well, I saw it firsthand, designing for luxury houses here in Paris. there's a specific person in the team that's charge of picking colors. That's her job, specifically just picking colors for the season. And this is true for every big kind of maison. And so it's interesting because, if you have this person picking colors, then it's obviously not true and not accurate to say that there is no color in the luxury space, because there is. It's just maybe sometimes have to be used in a more subtle way in order to get something else from the design across. So if the design is about volume or about creating something on the body that does not exist, or
Sorry, I don't understand why you say that the old black is very chic.
no, I think that that's a stereotype.
It is. Sorry, it's like a cliche.
Yeah.
Because I know that I'm a Persian, so anyway, that does nothing mean I'm Persian or I'm English or whatever. I think that first of all, I think it's a question of nature and emotion of yourself. It's not because of you're born, in South America or I don't know, maybe in Poland or whatever. I mean that your emotion with the colors would be different. Deja. I think so. I think so. And the first thing, and I saw, I of course because I'm always around the fashion, all the défilé and all the lifestyling and interior designing and everything. I know that all the person they think it's very chic. They are all. This is all the person that they don't know what is the education, what is the Parisian style. They don't know nothing. So they always put everything in black.
It's safe.
So I know exactly it's safe. And then they say, okay, so they're right, and they say only, I put a very big ring. So they feel like very classy. Exactly. So this is feeling safe. So and I think which is very important. It's just we talked about Almodovar stuff. It's just you can talk the conversation before even without talking nothing. Color is a conversation. When you're coming somewhere with your attitude and just the way you walk and the way everything, the environment, the tool, you have even not need to talk. You know what I mean? Everybody knows. Wow. Or you have to shoot her, or you have to It's and it's a conversation first of all, the color and the way of course the attitude around and the environment around. And so I'm not gonna worry, the same thing as in this place and because first of all it's a conversation. When you see me, it's first of all the conversation, and all the designers when you are coming, because Alexandre Michele, for example, Alexandre Michele, he did all the artisanat, revisited the artisanat, but on the way very, very, and they didn't understand because it was just like us, if you want, you have all the paysans, they put, all the paysans, which is so sexy. They put a man or woman, they have the trousers, and after that you have the long dress, and after that you have the par-dessus, après tu as un plissé, après tu as un foulard, après tu as plein de colliers, des choses comme ça, et c'est juste Alexandre Michele, il a repris tout, all the street life, the mountains life, the artisanat, with all the colors, and he put it on the Royal, you know what I mean? And I know that when you go to the mountains, I know it's the same, maybe
in Peru.
Of course, this is the same. So this is the same. So why not? It's just, the feeling, the emotion you have, and the way that you want to look at this, So of course, Vuitton is gonna put, but now Vuitton, he took Williams, it's gonna be much more colorful. So it's depend on the designer. So it's not depend if there is so much color in fashion or in the interior design or whatever. It just depends on of what emotion instead of the person which is doing that, what emotion he wants to make alive. So
Yeah, I think, that's obviously kind of where it starts from also. When you start the design process, it's really kind of the mood that you want to convey for the season, for example, and that usually starts with the color. And whether it's subconsciously or purposefully, you realize that there is a color palette beginning to emerge. And I think it's interesting what you said about kind of the artisanal aspects of each country, because while they're very varied, I feel like now more than ever we live in a time where information is very shared and is very accessible to a lot of people. So I feel like we're finally beginning to see this merge between either it's artisanal craftsmanship from your country or mine or from here, and so you're beginning to see this kind of combination of everything.
And this is the same as colors, and this is the same as what I said about the conversation.
Yeah.
This is like the flesh with everything, like the kid that in England, all the man, they're wearing, and you feel that's gorgeous, no? With the socks and the beautiful legs with a lot of poil, Come on,
The body,
poil. Non, mais j'adore les kits, j'adore, c'est sublime, c'est tellement
the
chic.
key,
Oui,
the
oui, c'est tellement chic, c'est extraordinaire.
And there's a whole
Oh,
study on
it's
kilts and
not-
the color of kilts,
it's
because
not-
the colors, all the colors mean a different thing, and they correspond to different families and everything, so that's another example of how color is super, super ingrained into culture and society, because they assign all of these
At the
things.
top, no?
And this
Well,
is,
it's a cultural.
I think this is contributing maybe this project makes this idea of colors, deconstruct the idea of colors and cultures and the cliches of colors we have and the ideas, the fake ideas we put on them. And I think thanks for this project, guys. You did very good.
Maybe you should
And
have invited the real French, very, very like this. And we wanted to, what he's thinking
head
about
to toe
colors.
in navy blue.
but I
Navy
think
blue, head to toe.
You have it there.
There is one that.
Il aurait fallu un vrai français, comme ça, et qui parle, qui parle de la couleur. Parce que là, moi, je suis iranienne, perse, de grand-mère géorgienne. Enfin, bon, ça va dans tous les sens. Et là, je vois qu'on est pleine de couleurs.
Mais il faut
But-
inviter un français par
but John,
exemple.
you are
Appelle un français.
John is from China and he is the curator of this project. So I think let's go to drink the wine. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, guys. Congratulations for this project and for bringing us here.